So, can you hear me? Perfect. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our side event, Speaking Up for Nature Better Communication from UCN CBD communities. This side event, the main objectives that we want to achieve is how is the communication between the most influenced global arrangement in nature conservation in the world, IUCN CBD, how it is, and how UCN members, key actors as regional governments, youth can get involved in this communication, and how national and regional committees and commissions can be very useful in all this process. Okay, this side event is made by ISENCA, is the IUCN Interregional Committee for Europe, North, and Central Asia. I have been doing this with Chris Mahon. This is live streaming. Hi, Chris Mahon. Thank you very much. He was working so much in that, but he got COVID, so he cannot be here today. It's an honor that we have Haile Egerman with us to do the Chris part. Thank you very much for helping us in that. And okay, I'm going to start introduce myself. My name is Ana Spadale. I'm a technician of the government of Catalonia, but also I'm a ISENCA member. I'm going to moderate the first part of the panel. This panel will have two parts. The first part, we're going to talk about the communication between IUCN CBD with regional governments and also youth. And the second part will be Haile Egerman. As you all know her, she's the vice president of IUCN and the consular of the West Europe. She's going to moderate the second part. That's about this collaboration between commissions and committees and UCN and how we can improve it. Every part will have, every speaker will speak about 40 minutes with the most important information. And after that, we want the audience to get involved with this. This is a panel discussion, but we want to keep time for you to ask questions because this is something to do together. So for that, we want you to get involved as we. So we are so happy that you make us a lot of questions. And we are going to start with the first panel. And first will be Victoria Romero. She's the policy officer of the biodiversity at UCN. And Victoria, could you explain the current arrangement from an UCN perspective?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Great. Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Anna. Thank you very much. So I'll be doing a little scene setting here. I don't know how well the audience actually knows what IUCN is, but just very quickly, it's a membership organization comprising over 1,400 member organizations, NGOs, indigenous peoples organizations, but also national and subnational governments. It also has a huge network of over 15,000 experts in 7 commissions and a worldwide secretariat. IUCN is a very particular organization. It has a unique multi-stakeholder decision-making process. We call it the motions process. And it has been instrumental in the creation and development of a number of multilateral environmental agreements, including the CBD. So why am I telling you this? This is because IUCN's relationship with the CBD, it's a long-standing one, but it's also a multifaceted one, in that each constituent part of IUCN engages with the CBD in different ways, often together, and that's how we get best results. So how do we, IUCN, what it does is provides technical policy advice and support to parties to the convention, but also to the CBD Secretariat. So we do this very quickly. Like the channels that we do is sometimes IUCN has had in the past MOUs, Memorandums of Understanding, with the CBD Secretariat, but also we engage through formal negotiations, bringing IUCN's messages from our membership to the global policy arena, and also to ensure that policy decisions are based on sound scientific evidence. IUCN has a wealth of information through its knowledge products. It helps the implementation of the convention and the monitoring, and it helps parties to do that. Another channel is a lot of the work is done intersessionally. So IUCN, different components working directly with the CBD Secretariat, sort of behind the scenes to ensure successful outcomes. So just to give you a few examples, and I'm going to finish quickly with this. On the first point, for example, for COP15, we are bringing IUCN's members. So wait, in the IUCN World Conservation Congress last year, IUCN members decided on 22 resolutions related to the post-2020 global biodiversity framework, and we incorporated that, and that's built on IUCN's position, and this is the message that we're bringing forward to the CBD this time. It ranges from the mission to halt and reverse the loss of biodiversity and towards a nature-positive world, the 30 by 30, but also enhancing the implementation of the convention through NBSAPs. On the second example, what I said about intersessional work, we have, for instance, the IUCN Secretariat and the World Commission, IUCN's World Commission on Protected Areas, worked with the CBD Secretariat and led, for example, to the definition of OICMs back in 2016, which was great. And more recently, yesterday, we also had the decision on nature and culture that also was the result of IUCN's work with the UNESCO and the CBD Secretariat to adopt this decision. So I think I don't know if my time's up, probably yes. So yeah.
If you want to finish, you can.
No, I think I'm gonna leave it at that.
Okay, perfect. And also, I forget to remind you that we're going to make a question to all the speakers, that it will be, which is the one big thing that you would like to see happen in 2023 to significantly take things forward?
2023 will be the translation of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework at all levels, not only the work of the Secretariat, but also, like CBD Secretariat, but also with all parties. So this is what I want to see.
Thank you very much, Victoria. We follow with the second speaker, that is Renata Gomez. She's the Biodiversity Program Manager at Region 4. So Renata, now that there is an IUCN membership category for subnational governments, how can this help with engagement on these issues?
Thank you, Anna. Yes, so this COP and the fact that the IUCN adopted this motion to welcome subnational governments into their membership is particularly important, because we are seeing a more than ever strong leadership coming from subnational and local governments, and this COP is the clear show of that. We at Regions 4 represent over 40 subnational governments and channel their voice into the CBD, and to do that we use two platforms mainly. One of them is the Advisory Committee on Subnational Governments, which is an official platform that the CBD parties created back in 2010 during the COP10 in Nagoya. And through the Advisory Committee, we do advocacy work, of course, on behalf of subnational governments. And what we're doing at this COP particularly is we've been together with leaders from the Edinburgh Process Partnership that include, of course, Scotland, Wales, Quebec, our host for this COP, Catalonia, of course, and many, many more. Actually, over 300 local and subnational governments have joined this partnership. There was a consultation process that resulted in one draft decision and plan of action that is hopefully going to be adopted during these very same negotiations. The decision that we want to see adopted is particularly in relation to the engagement of subnational governments and local authorities to the implementation of the post-2020 GBF. So we want to step up the role that we are playing with the CBD, and not only discuss about recognition and acknowledgement of what we're doing, but actually stepping up and start already discussing implementation, how to enable the conditions for local and subnational governments to actually participate more strongly in the GBF implementation. So that is the mechanism that we are using. That's one, the advisory committee. The other one, and this relates to capacity building also for subnational governments. That's our collective, our community, right? It's the Regions with Nature platform. This is a brand new platform that we are about to launch in partnership with ICLEI, with a group of leading subnational governments that is led by the Aichi prefecture government, also by the European Committee of the Regions. And it's a sister platform of Cities with Nature that you probably have heard of. It's also an ICLEI and IUCN supported platform that was launched in 2016 that already has, I think, over 260 cities within their partnership. So we want to do the same for subnational governments, and the Regions with Nature platform that is actually going to be launched tomorrow during the 7th Summit for subnational and local governments that is taking place at the plenary room. It's an open source, it's an open community for every subnational government of the world to come and join. It's in principle, in its initial stage, it's a community for us to learn from each other. It has a case study database, which is kind of imagine it's like a lab for subnational governments to come and learn from each other. It will be populated with more and more case studies, but in principle it starts with 8 case studies so far, 1 or 2 from Catalonia, also from Quebec, from Lombardy. And these case studies that are translated into English, Spanish, French, are available for everyone with, like I said, success stories that are replicable, accessible to all subnational governments to learn from each other. The Regions with Nature also has, hopefully, if this decision, the one that I mentioned at the beginning of my intervention, gets adopted, will have the mandate to become the monitoring platform for the local and subnational commitments to the post-2020 GBF. So there's a lot of potential there. I think the IUCN has been supporting local and subnational leaders for all these years, like Vicky said. So it's essential that we continue to do this, and that we continue to do this especially in 2023 and beyond for the next 10 years. We really have to start talking now about implementation. It's not also advocacy. We have done that. Let's move forward with what's next, which is implementation. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you very much, Renata. And I will ask you, which is the one big thing you would like to see next year?
Well, the very first thing that we want to see, and hopefully it will happen on Tuesday, is the adoption of the decision that we want to, like I said, see adopted. And after the decision, we want to see its implementation. We need to start talking about how to put it into practice. And and for doing this, the advisory committee members, regions such as Catalonia, such as Quebec, but not only that, partners such as the IUCN, the Global Youth Network, they're also essential to put this into motion, because everything will take place at the local and subnational level. So if we really want to see results, and if we want to measure them, we need to partner with each other, because the IUCN is already doing a lot to monitor progress. Let's get connected and not duplicate efforts, actually build on those efforts, and yeah, start measuring the progress and strengthening the partnerships to do that. So yeah, I think this COP is the right place to start talking that, especially after being unable to sit and talk face to face for so long. I think it's a golden opportunity to strengthen and leave the COP with stronger partnerships and yeah, the readiness to start implementing the post-2020.
Thank you very much. And now with the last speaker, before I would like to remind to the people that is seeing this virtually in YouTube, you can ask questions in the YouTube page, so we're going to transfer it here. And our last speaker is Sweta Stotra. She is the Global South Focal Point of Global Youth Biodiversity Network. And I would like to Sweta to, now that we have in IUCN a global youth strategy, how might this help us engage with the youth community?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I am a part of the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, and our network is the youth coordination platform for young people in the CBD. But we also do a lot of work on the ground through our chapters. We have over 50 national chapters and over 1 million members and 600 member organizations. So through these people, we do a lot of work on the ground, and we also try to bring their voices to the spaces like the CBD so that their voices are recognized and heard as well. So with respect to the work on the youth strategy, I don't know if people know, but this largely came out from the Global Youth Summit that happened in 2021 in April, where we had we were supposed to have that in person, but because of COVID, it was virtual. But we were able to have a lot of young people who are really actively wanting to engage. And we had this virtual youth summit with IUCN, where we worked with the people, the young people who joined it. I know there were more than 10,000 people who registered for the summit, and there were definitely thousands who were a part of the online summit. And I think through this summit, we were working with a lot of young people to really hear from them, their voices, and see how they see engagement happening better with IUCN. We also launched campaigns during that virtual summit. We also had consultations with them. And one of the key things that did come out from that summit was this youth strategy for engagement of youth in the IUCN space. I think definitely the strategy was a great first step in engaging young people better in the IUCN space, because I recently joined as a steering committee member of IUCN CSP, and I definitely think it's as big a spaceship to navigate as much as the CBD was when young people first joined the CBD, because it is so complicated. These are so old, the structures are so old that it takes time to really understand, okay, how do you talk to people in this space and how do you engage with them? So I'm now in the process of navigating the spaceship of IUCN. So I think definitely having this youth strategy would be a great first step, and really helping some key ways in which young people can see, okay, these are spaces you have given us as a mandated place for us to start engaging. So we get into those spaces, and then through those spaces, hopefully we'll learn how to, really have a powerful voice within IUCN. And that is my aim, and that is my dream for the strategy itself, is to really help it move the space so that, IUCN also has a strong youth voice in it that is really pushing the decision-making space. It is really pushing the voice of IUCN in the direction that is for the future, and which is for the better for all future on Earth in all ways. So this is my hope and dream for this strategy. And for those of you who are interested in the strategy, we do have a meeting with lovely commission chairs on 13th in our youth pavilion space, which is in the other room, Place Quebec. So if you are interested in brainstorming with us on how to really operationalize this strategy, we would love to have you join us there and think about how we can make this dream of mine possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Sveta. I don't know if you asked you the one big thing. I think that you just say it, or perhaps you want to add something more about this?
Yeah, no, so I think with the one big thing with the strategy would be this, but then I would love to echo what Renata just said with respect to 2023, because it is, you know, we are, for us, the decision-making space here is just like the beginning, like really the step zero of, you know, making the change happen. For us, it's for our generation, it's really life or death right now, and for us, we choose life. That means we as young people are not even waiting for 2023. At the end of the COP itself, we are having an implementation conference, a youth into implementation conference, and we're actually working on how we're going to start implementing key parts of the post-2020 and, you know, really create those partnerships, but make those intergenerational partnerships so that, you know, we can start the implementation. And 2023 is all about building capacity and kicking off implementation in all levels. So yeah, that's my plan.
Thank you very much. Really, you three speakers, it was amazing, all the work that you are doing. And as you said, we have to work together, to partnership, and not replicate the same. We have the same issues, but we have to get the different generations and different levels. So now we're going to start with the question part. And I don't know in the audience there is someone that wants to have a question. Good voice, but
My question is for Sveta, and I'm a big fan of Gibbon. There's probably only 100 of you here and 600,000 in your network. What are the tactical ways you can use your 6,000 plus, 600,000 plus network to lift the voice and encourage the dialogue?
So that's a really important question, and that's something that we are also challenged with, because as a network of young people, everybody comes here as volunteers with 100% of passion and 0% of finance, but we are here because we really care for our future. But having to engage a larger audience, especially all our members who listen to us and join us time and again, there is a challenge on how we can really bring them more actively involved and get them fully in. Many of them are actually very active on the ground in their countries, and they do engage with us in our workshops, in our local events. But I think, as I said, my vision for 2023 is all about implementation, and that's where I see them really engaging with us. And we have to definitely think, and I would love to have Sean's ideas on how we can have some of these people who are like passively listening to what young people are doing, but how do you make them active engagers to join you in implementation? We hope that our chapters would be able to bring some of those people in, because we have like 50 national chapters, and they could engage some of these members on the ground. But there are also needs of, you know, going beyond our network itself and really engaging all youth to start taking up some steps of implementation, some steps of pushing for accountability with the different stakeholders that are implementing the post-2020. So yeah.
I don't know if someone has another question, or perhaps online. We're checking. Okay, I have one online question. Is there someone here in the site? No? Okay, I'll go. About Peter Wells, shares whether, how do we as youth show up to these institutions with a different set of social physics focused on collaboration, imagination, and joy, rather than getting stuck in 20th century institutional politics? Okay, is how do we as youth show up to these institutions with a different set of social physics focused on collaboration, imagination, and joy, rather than getting stuck in 20th institutional politics?
I think we as young people are very, very well positioned in that. Even if you are seeing young people at this COP, we are the ones who are strongest giving a pushback to all kinds of false solutions, broken promises. We are against anything that is too little, too late. And we're really here to say that any kind of greenwashing, youth washing is totally a no-go. We are really holding everybody accountable, even Nature Positive right now, to really what it is, and are you really doing what you say you're going to do, or is there some way that there can be a corporate takeover or greenwashing happen through this? So as young people, I think we are very strongly positioned to not respect institutions for their structure, respect people for sure and their value, but you do not have to respect the institution. You can go as a young person and go and speak to the head of IUCN and tell them exactly what you feel, because that's the power of young people today. And you as a person who's online, you have that power too, and you can tweet to these people. You can also tag Gibbon and ask us to ask questions to these people, and we would love to be your voice in this negotiation to push for a critical voice in this space, because that's what young people have to do, right? It's our future, and we do not want to take anything that is a quick fix or a superficial thing anymore. For us, we want nothing but like a whole of society system change and transformative change, and we are not going to back down till we get that.
Thank you, Andres. Yes, this is really what we need, this. And I don't know if there is another questions. Yes, Boris?
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's a good vibe. So just to stay in the same venue and ask Victoria, I mean, we know each other, but still, you mentioned then 2023 being the year of a translation, yeah, sort of, a transition year. So how you see that translation happening at all levels in the most direct and honest way in order to get to where we are heading for?
Thanks, Boris, for that question. Well, first and foremost, we need to have, like Renata said, from now, a decision that would guide us to do the actual implementation. So once we get out of here, then we need to work with our members, our regions, all of IUCN's constituents, that's how I see it, in order to, to break down this framework and see what it means to everyone. So how everyone can contribute to it. For example, like I think both of you were saying is sort of aligns with what I said about translation, how it will be for subnational governments, how it will be for youth. But not only that, but for example, right now the post-2020 doesn't have a target on marine and coastal biodiversity. But we do have a marine and coastal biodiversity program of work. So we'll need to do that translation next year as soon as possible. And IUCN is very well placed to do that. We have the expertise to do that. And we also have a great network of regional offices and through our members, actually, that will help us do that, establish national targets and targets also for the national, at the subnational level as well. So that's...
Thank you very much. And now for time, we are going to start with the second half. Thank you for all the speakers for this moment. And also, if someone have other questions. Oh, well. Okay, Kira, do you need me to do something? Okay, perfect.
I hope that Chris will send me the questions like that.
I can stay with Chris and I can take the microphone. I'm going to take the microphone with the mic. And here you have this for moving.
So good morning to all. We have indeed a new set of speakers. And most notably, we have people, we have professional communicators with us. We also have people that represent the national and the regional committees. And we also have people that are very heavily engaged in the commissions. So we will hear now their views on how we can improve communications from the CBD to the different levels, and also how we can really enable that implementation. So I will start with Tony. Oh, I'll have to move. Tony Unipair, you're a professional communicator. So according to you, what could we do, or what could we do differently to have better communications, better uptake from the CBD to basically to the whole of society? And then also, what is your one big thing that you would like to see happening in 2023?
Thank you very much indeed, Hilda. So I do spend quite a lot of my time communicating, but actually I'm an ecologist. I've had many different roles in conservation. Increasingly now we call it nature recovery. Most recently to lead me to be the chair of the British government's conservation agency in England, Natural England. And so the work that we do, it's multiple layers. Some of it is regulatory, some of it is advisory to government. A lot of it is linked with evidence and science and gathering of data and managing that in order to be able to help government make good decisions. So we've got multiple levels of engagement into this process of nature recovery. And the thing that I do believe has now migrated to centre stage in all of this, and which will be critical in determining the success of the implementation of any framework that comes from here, will be effective communications. And so I just invite everybody just to think for a moment about where we are now in setting this post-2020 framework, and to just look back, first of all, before looking forward, because the truth of it is that the very good framework that was set in 2010, it was not implemented. 20 Aichi targets, not one of them met at the global level. And I think that really poses a really fundamental question now about what's going to be different in the future. And what does need to be different in the future is that this framework, unlike the one that came from Nagoya, it needs to be treated as a political priority. Because if it's not treated as a political priority, it will be like the last set of commitments. It will be in the sidelines, it won't be mainstreamed, it won't get support, and it won't be delivered. And all of the fantastic conversations going on here, the great raft of science and knowledge that's being ploughed into this process, it won't get impact unless it has that momentum that comes beyond this. Now, just give you a sense of the scale of the challenge. Now, the BBC a few years ago did a survey. They went out into the street and they asked members of the public, what do you think biodiversity is? And do you know what the biggest single category was? People thought it was a kind of washing powder, right? And I don't think things have changed very much since that survey was done a few years ago. The language we are using is impenetrable. The terms of reference we use have no connection to the public. And if there is no connection to the public, this cannot be a political priority. Because in democracies in particular, but any kind of governance really, if you don't have the backing of the people in making what are sometimes complex choices, then you really can't do them. And in the UK at the moment, where we have a pretty high level of literacy on all of this, there's a big debate now about the price of food, the price of energy, how many houses are being built, and in some people's minds, what we call conservation and environmental protection, they see it as something which is stopping food being cheaper, which is stopping energy being made available to the public, which is slowing down house building. And all of these things have negative connotations for the public, who, as I said a moment ago, really don't understand what we're talking about here. So 2023, for me, has to be the moment when we find ways of breaking out of our bubble, which is what it is. We're sitting here in a bubble. There's thousands of people here, but there's 8 billion who are not. We're going to have to break out of this bubble and begin to build popular understanding of what is being decided here in order that we can have support for implementation. Otherwise, we'll come back in 2030 to create the 2040 framework, and we will find that none of the targets have been met again. So this, for me, is not really a challenge. This is about communications between all of us and our institutions. It's about breaking out and connecting with the billions of people who need to be on the same page as what this framework will say when it leaves here next week.
Thank you, Tony. I think you mentioned a very important point that we will not be able to make this a political priority if it's not understood by the people in the street. So maybe also coming now to our next speaker, that is Madhu. Madhu is the chair of one of the 7 commissions, the World Commission on Protected Areas. So Madhu, from your perspective, what do we need to have a better communication also from the commissions to the members? In many cases, the commission members are also engaged in these political processes. They also feed the science into the policy process. So how do you think we can better connect all these components?
Thanks, Hilde, and good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here. I think the first thing is something that Tony just said, and I believe it relates to how complex this convention is. And for those of us who've been engaged with it on a technical level for several decades, it's all very second nature. So I think the biggest challenge we have is to simplify some of the messaging that is coming out as outcomes of this meeting and in this convention to the general public. And it's not really simplifying to lose the nuances, but how do we communicate this in a way that the public can understand? So as a technical commission, as the Commission on Protected Areas, our mandate is to develop technical guidance and tools to support parties in the implementation of the convention. So, we are very targeted, we're very strategic in the type of guidance we've been producing. We have a huge body of technical guidance that relates to several aspects of the convention, to several targets. But what I think, and we have these in best practice guidelines, we have these in various languages, etc. But I think what we really need to be thinking about is more creatively communicating this technical guidance to the agencies that are going to take up this technical guidance. And I don't think we've done enough of that. I think we produce the stuff and we expect people to read it, to absorb it, to adopt it, and support implementation. So I really feel as a commission that we continue to focus on the technical aspects, but think about using creative communication approaches. And I know the communication world has really advanced rapidly, and it goes beyond just producing the stuff in print, in books, in PDFs. We want to be able to figure out how we can communicate this to support uptake. In terms of how do we connect to the public on the CBD outcomes? I think it really goes back to what Victoria said, which is, at least from the IUCN perspective, it is to make connections to the resolutions. So it's, the members of the IUCN who are or all over the world, they have adopted these resolutions. Resolutions are the core of IUCN policy. And there are several resolutions that are directly linked to the CBD. I think Victoria mentioned 22 of them. And I think in the messaging that we take to the public, it's making those specific links to those resolutions so that IUCN members know what they can do to advance some of these outcomes. For example, there is a specific resolution on the role for IUCN in supporting the development of NBSAPs and implementation of NBSAPs. So in our communications, I think we want to bring in resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there also one big thing that you would like to share with us?
So I think the one big thing from my perspective is what would be great is for biodiversity to get the same level of attention at the political level as climate. I'd really like to see biodiversity on many agendas, not just the environment agenda, just like climate is everywhere. So I'd like to see biodiversity elevated to the same level as climate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madhu. I think you clearly stressed also the importance of this sound knowledge base, but that it shouldn't just stick with the technical facts. We should also do the science policy interfacing. And indeed, making this link with the resolutions to make sure that we all understand what we can do also as part of IUCN. Now, I'm very happy to introduce you also to our next speaker, who is Ernesto Herrera. He's the chair of the Mesoamerican Committee, so he's very well placed to make the connection also with the regional and the national committees of IUCN. So Ernesto, what is, according to you, what do members need to be more effective in communicating, but also in delivering on the global post-2020, the post-2020 global biodiversity framework?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Hilge, for moderating this panel. Just to answer that, I would like the audience to remember, or just to know about what happened in Mexico a few years ago. We host the CBD COP, the 13th CBD COP, and before that, I remember having a conversation with someone from the private sector, someone who was the CEO of a corporation. And it was a food company, but we asked about, hey, what do you think about biodiversity? And say like, my agenda it has nothing to do with biodiversity, because what I do doesn't have to do anything with the polar bear or the blue whale, so I don't have to work on that. And if I ask my stakeholders, they don't see any materiality here. So there was a full disconnection. And because of the CBD COP, because of all the conversations, because all the dialogues that were created, many different alliances were detonated, such as the Mexican Alliance for Business and Biodiversity, or the NGO-based Mexican Alliance for Biodiversity, or even the Mexican chapter for the Global Youth and Biodiversity Network was created. And we, as a national committee, took advantage of this momentum, and we developed like a forum, the first IUCN forum in Mexico. And that was an excellent opportunity to bring all different players, different actors from different hats, just to have conversation and to make practical decisions about nature. And nevertheless, we are a little bit worried right now because, Tony and Madhu have already talked about how complex this agenda is. Like, it's science-based, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult to communicate. But we are really worried that we are living right now in Mexico, in several countries in Mesoamerica, and many places in the world, where there's a lot of polarization. So there's a huge difference before the different players. The political actors are really reducing all the civic spaces for collaboration. And therefore, the national and regional committees should be those places where we can really develop trustworthy places, so that all the different players, indigenous peoples, the youth, women, the private sector, NGOs, local governments, all the different players can really talk and start like translating all this complex agenda into action. So we need them to cascade the global biodiversity framework into practice. And yes, next year is going to be the second forum in Mexico, and that this would be a great opportunity for us just to translate this agenda into practice. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there any big message that you would like to see or think happening in 2023?
Well, if 2023 is going to be the translation year, I would like nature to be the Rosetta Stone, and probably the national committees. I would suggest any national UCN committee to have a conversation for that, to host a forum like the one that's going to be taking place in Chiapas next year.
Thank you. And it's great that you referred back to the convening power of IUCN, because that's the reason why we are here, and also the reason why IUCN is so effective. So I will now introduce you to our next speaker, and that is Sean from the Commission on Education and Communication. So he's perfectly placed both from a communications perspective, but then also, of course, as one of the main components from IUCN. So Sean, what is, according to you, everything that you've heard so far, what do you think we can do? What can we do to improve the communications from the CBD to the members, to the local level?
So I love following these three wonderful speakers, because we've heard a lot of the challenges. We have a hard agenda ahead of us. as Madhu says, it's not on the political agenda. It's complicated. There is no clear apex level, 5 degrees or 2 degrees or 1.5 degrees to pull people together. It means different things to different people. Some people like pangolins, some people like polar bears. So I would love us to think about how we turn these negatives into positives and recognize there's features of our community that could very easily, if we work together differently, create a new paradigm where nature becomes part of the global discourse. You don't get political change unless you have people committed. You don't get people committed unless you make the invisible visible and get people talking about it. And I don't care if people know what the GBF is or the CBD is. For me, that's not the interesting point. It's, are they talking about nature in all its complexity and its risks at the local level, because culture comes from the local level? Are they putting it in terms they care about? Are they acting on it in terms they care about? And is it scaling up where success and wonder and innovation are being shared and moving the movement up? The other good news is we actually have much of what we need to do it. Just as a little microcosm, and IUCN is a microcosm, in the commission I'm lucky to work with, the Commission on Education and Communication, there are 1,500 members from around the world. Across the 7 commissions, there are over 20,000. You add that 1,500 member organizations that probably have 30 million staff and $1 billion in budget. You add that with all of our government allies, that's an awful big movement we already have. But we have to learn to amplify each other's voices. We have to learn to complement and recognize that it's an ecosystem of messaging. Some people want nature positive. Some people want it earth needs half. Some people want this. I want it all. Because there are different voices for different people. You need Gibbon out with 3,500 people in the freezing cold marching. You need rebellions on the far left. You need everything to move the curve towards a nature-friendly world. So what I want next year, Madhu wants a political discussion on nature. I want a public discussion. I'd like us to see nature as part of the global discourse, because if it's not part of the global discourse, the political shifts won't happen and the action won't happen.
Thank you. And I guess that's also your big thing to take for 2023, or you have another one that you would like to share?
I just want a global discussion.
A global discussion. Okay. Thanks much. And then our last speaker, last but not least, is Sarah. She's very heavily engaged in membership engagement at the secretariat level. And you may know or may not know that we have a global directory for the national and the regional committees. So Sarah, could you explain a little bit what this is, this directory, and how it could be used also to get this communication going to the more local levels?
Yes, thanks very much, Hilda. Getting forward here, because I get excited when I talk about engagement. Those of you who know me will understand the challenge that it was given to me to say you have to say everything you want to say in just 3 minutes. But anyway, here goes. We've heard lots about the problems about messaging, about accessing people, about the complexity of IUCN. It's true, it's a huge organization that's been around for a while. It is a bit lumbering at times, but we've got modern technologies, we've got modern ways of communicating. And we do have the wherewithals within IUCN to get the messaging out there. And from my point of view, a conduit of getting messaging out there, of course, is the members. I'm responsible for ensuring that our members are aware of what's going on. However, there are 1,400 members, so it's difficult to ensure that we have a sort of unified messaging. So I really believe that the national and regional committees are key. They're key elements, key constituents in the union, and we have to use them. They create a bridge between the secretariat and the members themselves. And Esther, you were talking about creating a space of trust. And it's through that that we can then go further out and share our messaging. Great, we have this wonderful, we have 67 national committees, we have 8 regional committees, a new and inter-regional committee who have organized this session. But where to find the information, and that's why we have the directory. After the Congress in Hawaii in 2016, the Global Group launched the process to pull together the information of all of these committees that we have in one place. So we have descriptions of general descriptions of the committees, some key events and milestones that have been achieved, and of course, importantly, a contact, because you can't get, it's all very well knowing that these are out there and existing, but you have to be able to contact them. We've just completed an update on this directory. We'll be publishing the new version in the next 5 to 10 days. And so I encourage you all, if you want to get the word out there, to have a look and see what's in there. And then how to further increase this messaging. We are hoping next year we are going to launch, we're coming into the modern world, you know, being pushed by the youth as well, launching a new platform for the IUCN constituents. It's going to be a digital platform where, in a nutshell, we want it for it to be a safe space for all of the constituents of IUCN to be able to network, to hold discussions, and to amplify the messaging. Yeah, so look out for that. That's it in 3 minutes.
And another big thing you want to see happening, or that's...
We have to break out of our safe space. It's easy for us to understand and to create messages within this bubble that we're in, but I'd really like to see the national and regional committees using their space to get that messaging outside to those 8 billion people who are not here with us today. That's what I'd really like to see.
Thanks so much, Sarah, and we are really blessed to have you also at the Secretariat. You see, we feel your energy, and I'm sure that is also getting through to the national and the regional committees. So maybe we can now open up the floor for a few questions, maybe also from online. We'll see, as anyone who wants to ask. Yeah.
Thank you very much. This is Daniel Sanchez from Reforestamos Mexico, and it's a question for Tony or even Sean that are focused on communications. And regarding, remember what Ernesto mentioned about the polarization of the conversation. And given what you said, Tony, about looking backwards, what happened like in climate change, maybe like 10 years ago or 12, we saw like a conversation between deniers and people who were recognizing the climate action or needs for climate action. Do you think that we are facing something similar right now, like deniers that, or people that do not believe about on the necessities of biodiversity laws, or and just to think if what's the way to put the conversation in the common ground? Like now it's very common to hear conversations about climate change or global warming. They not necessarily really know about it, but it's on the conversations right now. So do you think we are in that kind of phase right now?
Very good question. And I think there are parallels with climate change, but I think it is slightly different. And so if you look back to the 1990s and you see the rise of the climate change science being translated into messages that then are leaning in toward policy, there is a very bad reaction from fossil fuel automotive interests who say, this is not true, it's uncertain, and even if it was true, leave it to the market. And the reason they're doing that is because they see a threat to their interests, and therefore they make these kinds of points. On nature and biodiversity, it's slightly different, because the way in which this conversation has hitherto been framed by quite a lot of the people involved in it, it is about ethics and morals. And so about, the ethical reasons for stopping extinctions and saving endangered species. And to that extent, it's not really had the same kind of impact into the different vested interests who would like to, continue doing what they're doing in the food system and in other areas of high impact on nature. And so, you know, we've not got that level of traction yet, I don't think, for there to be nature deniers, if you will. I don't think we've achieved that level of demand on society, and it kind of goes back to what was being said here a moment ago. This is not fully understood by the public. It's not been translated yet into a people-facing agenda. It's been nature because it's beautiful kind of an agenda, and therefore we haven't got to the point where the climate change issue got to some time ago. Am I making sense with this? And so, you know, we, I would say, need to reframe this, and it is beginning to happen, and we are getting to the point where we can start to say things which are a bit more like what the climate advocates were saying 20 years ago. Climate advocates translated the science into this is a threat to humankind. And for nature, we haven't quite got there yet to the level that people understand that. It still is seen as something about, you know, looking after tigers or whales rather than the collapse of human civilization. So the reason we haven't got to that denial point yet is because we haven't got to that level of implication for different economic sectors. Your question has an awful lot embedded in it, big implications for how we pursue all of this. And actually, you know, for my part, you know, 10 years ago I was writing books about the value of nature to the economy to deal with exactly the problem that you're raising. And actually, the strongest pushback I had was from conservationists and environmentalists who said you mustn't talk about nature in economic and instrumental terms. What we have to do is talk about it in terms of its intrinsic values. And so we've got almost some challenges inside our own movement in terms of how we move this into the place where climate change already is, in terms of it being very relevant to people and the economy, because we're not there yet. I don't think. I mean, amongst us we are, but
thank you.
Again.
I see also that Sean would like to compliment.
Reiterate in a similar vein, when something is distant, a pangolin, an elephant, a rhino, when it's dismal, we're losing them and we're losing a species, and we have nothing we see we can do. It's really easy to create an intellectual or financial reason not to engage. The whole movement building side says bring it home. It's a cliche, think global, act local, but it really was the solution 15 years ago that we've somehow lost. And it's a lot easier sometimes to get people to act themselves into a new way of thinking than it is to think themselves into a new way of acting. And our world of environment is complicated enough. We need to help people feel nature, connect to nature. In our Nature for All movement, it's about getting kids outside, getting green schoolyards, getting mothers with their kids and fathers and grandparents. A lot of it's going to be the intimacy and the connection between people and nature. And it has to go in through here, which a lot of us are not very comfortable talking about, the fact that emotions drive behavior. But a lot of this response is going to have to be an emotive response and not an intellectual response.
Thank you, Sean. I see another hand raised in the audience.
Hi, my name is Trey Lord from 1T.org US and American Force. I have a two-part question. First, could you, and this isn't anyone specific, but whoever is willing to answer, if you were willing to speak on kind of an audience fragmentation issue and how that kind of relates to issues around, I mean, in the case of, I guess, around sovereignty, around some of these, around biodiversity and kind of ownership of the local ecosystem. And I think, you know, wrongly in the case of the U.S. government, and one of the reasons why it's not, federal government, in the reasons why it's not a party to the treaty, and then it kind of, and rightly in the case of, say, indigenous peoples, how they rightly would have kind of an issue of sovereignty over their ecosystems. And then in a related note, if you're willing to comment on how social media and new media can play a role in improving this, but may have also played a negative role in, again, that fragmentation of the audience, but also how, I guess, in the fragmentation space, how streaming media can kind of, has kind of put everyone off in different directions, and how we can overcome the result of how Love Island is more popular than a David Attenborough documentary, if anyone's willing to speak on that.
In view of time, I will just allow like one answer, and then I hope that also after this session, people will continue the conversation. But maybe, is there anyone who wants to respond to this specifically, or you think you've said it all? Okay, Ernesto?
I would briefly say that I think there's a great opportunity for empowering the citizens to apply citizen science and to use social media to start like really positioning these issues, and so that we can really so that society can be heard by politicians. Yeah.
Okay, one last.
And just because this meeting was brought to us by the national regional committees, perhaps to put it in that framework. IUCN's a big, beautiful animal, but if you want to do audience segmentation, you meet your audience where they are, not where you want them to be, and a plethora of audiences. What I realize in IUCN is we often, you know, the environment law people meet, and the species people meet, and the WCPA people meet, and it's all great, but again, it's a huge echo chamber. I had the great joy of going to Ernesto's meeting in Mexico with 400 multi-sectoral members from across Mexico. And I saw what happens when you bring the discussion down to a tighter level of discourse. They're closer to the audience, and they know the audience better. So delayering, looking at subsidiarity, recognizing these sub-regional networks inside a global framework is super powerful. And that's why I love these national and regional committees, because they convene at the scales where they know their audience is better.
Thanks so much. It's time to wrap up. I will try to bring back a few key messages from today's discussions, but as I mentioned, it would be really good if we can keep the discussion going after this session. So I think what was stated in the beginning is that a lot of the GBF came actually from resolutions coming from the IUCN members. So there's a lot of bottom-up inputs. So now we have to bring it back to our members. There are a lot of very useful tools to do that. We have the platforms for the subnational governments, existing ones, new ones. We also have now the youth strategy that was born from the Youth Summit that can also help youth to navigate in the IUCN space, but also to amplify their voice and to also set up these intergenerational partnerships. We heard about the fact that we need to get it very high on the political agenda, but that this will never happen if we cannot convince the people in the street and if we speak a language that they understand, and that we help to enable the connection between people and nature. We heard also a lot about the importance of a science base, but we should get away from our ivory tower and really get the knowledge to there where it is needed. So also this interfacing part is very important. And we heard, of course, also that these national and regional committees are a fantastic tool, a fantastic space for collaboration. The convening power of IUCN is invaluable. So we have to break out of this bubble, and for sure there are plenty of opportunities to do this. I would like to conclude just with a few words from the chair of the global group, because as mentioned, he could not be here with us today because of COVID, Chris Maillon, but he just thanks all the speakers for their considerable wisdom and believes that all this information is very valuable, hoping that it can really empower the local level. So as a final concluding word, I would like to just lift one of the key messages from the speakers, and it's one from Sean, making the invisible visible, and I'm sure we can do it together. So many thanks for your participation, and I wish you a very nice next conference and lots of insightful discussions. Thank you.
Thank you.